Well, let's talk to Erin Sikorsky, who's the director of the Centre for Climate and Security and joins me from Washington. Erin Sikorsky, welcome. We've been hearing a number of alarming findings about the climate in the last day or so. What do you make of these latest two reports, the IEA and the UN's?
Well, I think it's important to start with the good news, and that's what's in the IEA report, that the world is moving faster than ever before toward clean energy. The bad news is that it's not moving fast enough, right? That's what the UN report shows. I think what's good in the IEA report as well is that the reasons for moving to clean energy are not just because it's good for climate change and good for the environment, but it's also good for national and international security, right? Moving to clean energy makes sure that countries aren't under the thumb of dictators like Vladimir Putin and tied to him for their energy security needs. So there are benefits to moving to clean energy to protect national security that go beyond preventing the worst outcomes from climate change.
Now, we heard today that the new British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, is not going to be at the climate conference COP27. Downing Street insists that doesn't mean that the climate's been downgraded as a priority. But does it matter, do you think, if leaders don't turn up?
Look, having, the senior leaders from countries around the world convene together to talk about moving forward on these issues is important, and it sends a signal when presidents and prime ministers show up at these COP meetings. The hard work of negotiations, of course, is done by more junior folks in the foreign ministries, and that's critical. But we do need that messaging from top leaders saying that they care, and this is something they're putting at the top of their priority list, right? The new national security strategy from the US, released a few weeks ago, called Climate Change an Existential Threat, put it right at the front of its national security policy, and that can really drive an important conversation.
Right, so you think leaders like Rishi Sunak should be there in Egypt. Another aspect, you mentioned the benefits of not being dependent for energy on people like Vladimir Putin and Russia and dictators. There's a report today you touched on from a parliamentary inquiry talking about national security and how it's being jeopardised by the failure of ministers to prepare for increasing risks of extreme weather events. Is that message getting through that the change in the climate really does affect so many aspects that perhaps we hadn't expected?
I think that message is getting through in part because of the extreme weather events that were experienced across the world this summer. If you look at the UK and Europe, where you had record-breaking heat waves, record droughts, when militaries had to deploy to fight fires, to rescue folks from natural disasters. In the UK, you had the busiest military airbase. The runway melted because the temperatures were so high. They couldn't take off or land planes there. That's a concrete security implication of climate change. And we see militaries around the world, including in the UK, including in the United States, stepping up and saying we need to address this to be able to complete our core mission, which is keeping our citizens safe.
Given all we're hearing from these various reports, given all we're seeing happening in the world at the moment, the variety of other challenges that nations are facing, what do you think, what do you hope will come out of that forthcoming COP27 conference that's about to get underway?
Yeah, I'll be looking for two things. One is, as the special envoy from the US, John Kerry, said, is that countries continue to raise their ambitions, that they recognize we have to move even faster and we have to do more. The second thing, though, is a recognition that, look, there are some climate impacts that are already baked into the system. Even if all emissions were cut tomorrow, we still have rising temperatures that we need to deal with today, and we need adaptation. We need to build resilience to those threats as well. You need to be able to do both, I would argue. And we'll see a lot from developing countries at this COP pushing the developed world to provide that climate finance and that funding for adaptation, which I think, again, is in the security interests of the United States, of the UK, to prevent fragile states and climate hazards from tipping into conflict in some of these places where we're already seeing high impacts.
Erin Sikorsky, Director of the Centre for Climate and Security, joining us from Washington. Thank you very much.